what's going on, guys? And as many of you have likely noticed, I'm going for a slightly different setup this time around. But the current dilemma I'm facing is that I have no idea what kind of background I want to choose. I mean, let's see here. Taken. Believe it or not, that is Taken. Oh, I'm never going to make my mind up. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of this current setup. But to get to the subject of today's review, jackpot.
Yeah, Devil May Cry is back. It's yet another franchise I've always wanted to talk about on my channel, and with the recent release of Devil May Cry 5,
now's the perfect chance.
This series began way back in 2001, and for a franchise that started out with a game that was originally going to be Resident Evil 4.
Not fucking with you, that's absolutely true.
It's amazing how it's become one of Capcom's most recognizable IPs.
And rightfully so.
Devil May Cry is gaming at its most stylish, with cool characters, slick action set pieces, energetic soundtracks, and one of the most outright fun combat systems in any hack and slash game.
And if you've yet to touch this series, do so now.
Because Capcom have just put out what I think is the best Devil May Cry yet.
Let's begin.
Number 1. I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light! The voice acting's gotten a bit better since then. So I should probably address this before anything else. Can you play Devil May Cry 5 without first beating the other games in the series?
Kinda.
The game is mostly a self-contained story, and there is a handy little video you can watch in the main menu so you can catch up.
Aren't these game designers wonderful?
So yeah, you definitely could, but I would really advise playing through at least Devil May Cry 4 first.
And if you want, make your way through 1 and 3 as well. That way you'll be familiar with the characters and any references they make. There is also the 2013 spin-off game DMC, but that's non-canonical and more of an alternative take on the series. And whilst that game certainly split the fandom, I personally thought it was great, and I say it's well worth the playthrough.
Oh, and then there's Devil May Cry 2. Feel free to skip that one.
So, Devil May Cry 5 starts off strong narratively with a scene of Dante and Nero facing off against a very powerful demon named Urizen, who is absolutely wrecking their shit.
And I'm not going to say any more about what happens. All you need to know is that it sets the stakes wonderfully.
And as the game progressed, I was always motivated to continue as I had to know what happened next. There's some neat twists in the tale, there's a mysterious character called V that intrigued me, there's a fun comic relief in the form of a weapons mechanic called Nico that I quite liked, there's fun comedic banter, Dante's as badass as ever, and then there's the scene where Dante gets that hat.
I dare not spoil it for you, just know that it is the greatest ever thing put on screen.
I'll take that.
Now, that's not to say the plot is a major selling point of this game, because it isn't.
You see, it starts off quite strong, but once it hits its narrative peak, it kind of fizzles out.
Without spoiling anything, certain things are revealed about certain characters, and they're cool twists. They just don't do much with those twists. Wait, he's and he's your... Wow, can't wait to see this dynamic unfold.
And it's gone! It's gone. It's all gone.
Yeah, the game ends pretty abruptly.
Like, I've just completed mission 20, but the way the story is going, I feel there should be 2 or 3 more missions still, right?
But no, the game then ends.
New character relationships aren't at all explored, a certain someone faces no repercussions for what they did, and everything wraps up in an ultimately unfulfilling way.
So yeah, don't go into Devil May Cry 5 expecting an expertly handled conclusion or anything.
But do still enjoy the impeccably well-directed and acted cutscenes, from the fun Deadpool-esque opening credits to all the one-liners and the game's many action set pieces, which are as much a blast to watch as they are to play.
No chit-chat or monologue? Just getting right to the point, huh?
All this talk about people wanting a Metal Gear Solid or a Zelda film adaptation, screw that. I want a Devil May Cry movie.
With all the advancements in CG and with video game movies getting a bit better now, I think now is the right time to see Dante on the silver screen. Hire a competent director like James Gunn maybe, or Edgar Wright might be an interesting choice.
Maybe I'm a bit biased as those two have shared my edits before, but I legitimately think they'd be good choices.
Put together a decent budget for all the special effects you'll need.
And I got the best cast lineup.
V has got to be played by Adam Driver, naturally. Colton Haynes from Arrow I think could pull off Nero.
And as for Dante himself, what do you guys think about Nikolai Coster-Waldau?
The Kingslayer himself I think has that Dante-esque swagger look. I think he could pull it off.
Oh, and the movie also has... Wait, I'm supposed to be reviewing a game here. Maybe we'll talk about this another time.
Number 2. Quality over quantity. So before I get into the combat system, I want to first address something about this game's level structure. You see, Devil May Cry 5 is almost unique in today's gaming world, because like its predecessors, it's still a linear mission-based game.
Quite a rare breed now amongst AAA titles.
You see, a lot of other franchises like Zelda, God of War, and Tomb Raider have adapted to the times and have all implemented free roam elements, and the vast majority of new IPs follow this game structure too. Devil May Cry 5, on the other hand, has a much more arcadey feel, but with its emphasis on getting a good score in each stage.
And let me just say, it's so bloody refreshing to see a title like that in 2019.
But be wary of the game's linearity, cause to maximise enjoyment of a title like this, your gaming habits and mindset need to be a bit different. Free roam titles like Red Dead Redemption and The Witcher are more relaxed, put your feet up, absorb the world kind of experiences.
In Devil May Cry 5, hold on to your butts.
The combat here is relentless, in your face, and requires your utmost concentration if you want to get an S ranking. So as a result, don't feel bad if you want to play this game in short bursts, as that's how a title like this should be played, I think.
Your fingers will need breaks, trust me.
This will also serve to extend the game's runtime, as in this era of 100+ hour free roam adventure games, an 11-hour single player title with little to no multiplayer component might at face value seem like bad value for money. And I'd understand why some people may think that.
But Devil May Cry 5 is kinda old school in this regard, as this is a game designed to be replayed.
When writing this review, I was almost tempted to berate the game for not having anything to break up the combat sections, like puzzles or vehicle segments or more dialogue with NPCs. I thought to myself, well, it's just fight after fight after fight. Aren't there any decent side distractions?
But I quickly realised that these elements wouldn't work in stages designed to be played through several times.
This is a title all about challenging yourself, mastering the deep and rewarding combat system and aiming for that elusive S ranking on each stage.
I'm not exactly critiquing the game here, I'm just letting you all know who the game is for.
If you like big open world games with hundreds of hours of game content available, Devil May Cry 5 might feel a bit lackluster to you. But if like me, you're kinda tired of the multitude of free roam titles that give you endless reams of boring objectives to complete, then Devil May Cry 5 will feel like a welcome breath of fresh air.
But of course this would mean squat if the combat wasn't any good, but don't worry about that.
Number 3. Face your demons and shoot them in the face. Okay, let's finally get around to kicking some demon ass. And Devil May Cry 5 marks a first for the series, as there are now 3 playable characters to choose from: Nero, Dante, and V. Future me in editing, will you please stop fucking around? Thank you.
So let's take an individual look at all 3 of these guys.
Let's start with Nero, who you begin the game with. Like Dante, he comes equipped with a sword and a gun. These alone are fun as hell to use, but Nero's uniqueness comes from his Devil Breaker arm. There's a whole assortment of different arm attachments Nero can use, from ones that will whip enemies around you like you're at a rodeo, to one that will attack enemies on your behalf, of which you can call back and go all Marty McFly on our asses. And there's a little extra strategic element with these too, as these arms can break and also cannot be switched. So you gotta be smart and know when to make full use of them and when to hold back. Nero's arm can also pull enemies towards him, or pull Nero towards the enemy, which is super useful for closing the gap so you can pull off mighty combos.
Out of the 3 playable characters, Nero is actually my favourite to use, as I'm a fan of his aerial sword moves, which do a great job of keeping enemies airborne.
Then you have Dante, and out of the 3 main characters, he's definitely the most in-depth. He has an extensive arsenal of eccentric weapons, from shotguns to rocket launchers to nunchucks to a bloody motorbike.
Yes, Dante wields a goddamn motorbike in this.
Dante also has the Devil Trigger gauge, which will give him a temporary boost in power, and then there's 4 different styles you can choose from, which will change the function of the B button on your controller, of which can do various things like give Dante a useful dodge move to giving him unique gun and sword attacks to aid in combos, and then there's defensive counter moves you can master too.
Honestly, the amount of moves you can pull off here is overwhelming.
And there's no way you can master Dante in a single playthrough. Honestly, Dante alone would be more than enough to keep players happy throughout the game's campaign.
And considering the 3rd character I've yet to talk about, I think that'd be for the better.
Yeah, let's talk about V, who is most definitely the least exciting of the 3 to use. You see, unlike Dante and Nero, V holds back and allows his familiars to attack for him. There's a shadowy, jaguar-like figure called Shadow, and a griffin-like creature called Griffin, who kinda reminded me of Iago from Aladdin.
Not sure about that one, though. Never seen it before. Not in the underworld, anyway.
Yeah, I like V and his familiars as characters. I just don't think he's that fun to play as.
You see, you attack with Shadow using X, and attack with Griffin using Y. And as you do with Nero and Dante, you have various combos you can pull off. But the problem is that pulling off these combos feels counterproductive.
Now, this is kinda hard to explain, but I'll do my best.
You see, you can attack with Shadow and Griffin at the same time, but pulling off 2 separate combos on 2 different buttons simultaneously?
I couldn't get my head around it.
True, I could slow down and attack with them one at a time, but that would leave them open to attack and would severely lower damage output. And because it makes a lot of strategic sense to have V out of harm's way,
You often can't tell what Shadow and Griffin are doing exactly.
are they mid-combo right now? Are they being attacked? Should I attack right now? You just can't tell. As a result, I found the best strategy was just to button mash and hope for the best. And that strategy unfortunately worked, especially if you put the game on auto mode.
Now, that's not to say V is awful to use, as his gameplay has a more strategic element to it.
You see, he has another more powerful familiar he can summon called Nightmare, which acts in a similar way to Dante's Devil Trigger gauge, and this gauge can be refilled by having V hold back and read from his book, of which will open you up to attack. So you gotta be smart when to use it. Then there's the fact that V has to finish off enemies himself, and if you hold off and take out several enemies at once, that will increase your style ranking more.
So yeah, V's gameplay has some interesting ideas, but at the end of the day, whenever I played as him, I just found myself constantly wishing that I was playing as Nero or Dante instead.
Luckily, there's not too many stages with V, and hell, I've seen other reviewers saying they did enjoy playing as him.
Just know I wasn't a fan.
But what about those elusive S rankings? Yeah, this is a true staple mark of the series. Devil May Cry is all about that flawless, fluid play.
Launch a demon in the air, pop a few shots in its abdomen, jump up, slice its head off, blow up a devil breaker in their face, and sooner or later, you'll be greeted with that ever so sweet smoky sexy style.
And the whole system will separate the boys from the men here, as the kind of combos that top players can pull off, elude me a little. My brain simply cannot process these button inputs.
But that's good, because whilst there's so much complexity in the combat system, it's still quite accessible for newcomers.
In fact, Devil May Cry 5 is the most accessible entry in the series yet, as easy mode here is a cakewalk. And if you really suck at video games, you can make use of the game's generous continue option. You can either spend red orbs or a single gold one to continue right where you left off. And the gold orbs are not that hard to come by.
But there's still plenty of challenge for more advanced players. Dante Must Die mode will kick your ass if you're not careful. Trust me.
Now, it is a shame these more advanced difficulty modes are locked out till you beat the game on easier settings, so take that into account if you're a DMC veteran looking for a challenge, as this may bother you.
Oh, and before I continue, I should mention the game's one online feature.
You see, as you play through the campaign, other online players may join you in battle. Usually though, they'll be off in the distance in a locked off area where you'll only be able to spectate, but occasionally you'll be able to fight alongside each other.
Now, this is a cool feature, but it's nothing to write home about.
It would have been a lot more exciting if there was a true co-op mode for the entire campaign, for both online with friends and split-screen local play.
But hey, Capcom will need to leave some ideas for Devil May Cry 6. Anyway, let's move on.
Number 4. Wallet May Cry. So let's talk about the upgrade system. Throughout the game, you'll collect many red orbs, which Dante, Nero, and V can spend on various perks, such as new combos, increased damage output, and other additional abilities.
But I bring this whole system up because, as many of you have likely heard, you can use real money to buy upgrades here.
Now, I used to have a strict stance on microtransactions. If they're in a game, that's an immediate hit to my score for said game.
Now, I would still definitely prefer it if they weren't present, of course, but if they're non-intrusive and don't break the game in any way, I'm fine with it.
And thankfully that is the case here. The game isn't stingy with its red orb output, and once you have the Dr. Faust item, you can actually farm red orbs pretty effectively. My only nitpick concerns the price of the EX Provocation taunts, of which costs it has too many zeros, but because the game is just outright fun to play, you'll feel motivated to keep fighting enemies for all those red orbs you'll need.
As far as microtransactions go in games, they're definitely not going anywhere.
I mean, have you seen what mobile games like Candy Crush makes? It's insane. So I can definitely understand why developers and publishers want to implement them. So I've decided that from now on, I'm gonna go easier on them.
But the moment any AAA game shoves them down your throat and implements any pay-to-win bullshit, I'll be there to say fuck that, trust me. Anyway, let's move on and talk about this game's stellar presentation.
Number 5.
Smoking sexy graphics.
So, Devil May Cry 5 is rocking the RE engine, being only the third game to use it after Resident Evil 7 and the Resident Evil 2 remake.
And I hope to see more of it, because this game both looks beautiful and performs beautiful.
Even on base console models, the frame rate is buttery smooth with no hiccups, and the character model work is top notch. All the characters are extremely expressive thanks to excellent mocap, and their designs are the best this series has ever seen. Many do indeed look quite different from previous games, as their faces have been based on real life models this time around, but they've done an excellent job with the casting.
The voice cast is also brilliant.
Ruben Landon killing it once again as Dante. Brian Hanford's voice fits perfectly for the somber and enigmatic V. And I always geek out a bit when I see a former Power Rangers actor in another IP. Yeah, Nero's voiced by Johnny Young Bosch.
And I'm just mortified that they didn't include some sort of power axe arm attachment for Nero. Duh!
More phenomenal!
If I were to nitpick performance issues though, I would point out that the game's loading times are a little longer than desired, especially when you enter into this practice arena to try out new moves. Yeah, that takes way longer than it should. Hopefully a future game patch can fix this.
I want to briefly touch upon the soundtrack. It's fantastic.
If you're a fan of mixing up techno and rock, you'll love it. It complements the action in the game brilliantly, and if it wasn't here, the game wouldn't be nearly as exciting.
I mean, what kind of musical genre could go with demon killing? Oh, a bit of Screamo, of course.
As I stare into the eyes of the coming apocalypse, I see them raging for my soul.
A lot of the songs are quite catchy too. The game's main theme, Devil Trigger, even has its own music video. I can't remember the last time a song from a video game had one. And it's an energetic, high-octane number with a memorable hook.
I've been giving it a few listens in my downtime and I love it.
Pull my devil trigger.
Devil May Cry 5. Bravo, Capcom.
Considering this is the 6th entry in the series, it's quite astounding how I can say it's the best one yet. Now, yeah, V isn't the most fun to play as, and the story's conclusion is kinda meh, but come on, the characters are smoking, the combat is sexy, and the game's overall presentation is full of style.
Devil May Cry 5, it's either a high 8 or a low 9. Alright, it's the highest 8 I could possibly give.
Games like these deserve our attention and money, so go out and buy it. Don't let the microtransaction thing put you off. Its sole purpose is to extract money out of rich, stupid people. Buy this game to support the single player focused aspect,
To let Capcom know that this sort of game is what we want to see from them. Till next time.